Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I feel like I haven't filmed like a sit down video in so long. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. But hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Paris, also known as LeSweetpea. Minasan konnichiwa, Paris desu. Hey guys, so for those of you guys who are new to my channel, my name is Paris and I make content about Japan and Japanese culture. I actually used to live in Japan and I did a lot of lifestyle vlogs. I also studied abroad there and I did talent work, modeling work, and I also was an English teacher there for about a year. So if you guys are interested in that type of content, then make sure you guys stick around to find out. 今日は日本語を学ぶのため5つの非伝統的な方法を教えたいと思います。I'm going to be teaching you guys 5 non-traditional ways to learn Japanese. So I get a lot of questions from you guys about how did I learn Japanese, how can you learn Japanese, how can you become fluent, you know, what are other ways to learn it besides like taking a class or besides like learning from a book. I would call myself basically conversational in Japanese. I currently work at a Japanese company and my boss only speaks Japanese, so I am around Japanese kind of a lot in my daily life. And also when I lived in Japan, I didn't have a problem like communicating just with like the locals or when I went out with my friends. At this point, I probably know about 1,000 to like 1,200, somewhere around there, kanji. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So number 1 is watching anime. So I know a lot of you guys might be like, hold up, that's literally so basic. Like everyone already knows like watch anime to learn Japanese. But the twist with this is to actually change the subtitles to Japanese subtitles and make sure you're also watching it in Japanese, of course. I feel like watching anime in Japanese is really helpful, but it takes it to another level when you actually change the subtitles to Japanese. You do want to have a basic understanding of hiragana and katakana so that you'll be able to at least read some of the subtitles. And if you guys haven't learned hiragana and katakana yet, you guys can check out my video about that I will put somewhere on the screen. Let's say that you don't know any Japanese yet, you haven't learned hiragana, katakana, you don't even want to touch kanji yet. I would say start by watching something that you've already watched before. So for me personally, like I love the Studio Ghibli movies or Ghibli movies like Ponyo, Princess Mononoke, all of those movies. So I already know what people are saying in those movies. So even if in Ponyo, like I heard something in Japanese and I didn't understand it, most likely I remember kind of what they said in English, and that will really help you to start associating Japanese words with English words, and you'll kind of be translating it in a way by yourself, like without realizing it, because you'll hear what they're saying in Japanese, and if you've already been studying a little bit, you might hear maybe 2 out of 5 of the words or however many words you might kind of like understand them a little bit, but then you'll be like, oh yeah, like Ponyo says this or Sasuke says this. So that is definitely a really good tip and kind of a different way to learn Japanese from anime. And if some of you guys are like, oh my gosh, I can never find the Japanese subtitles, I recommend changing your Netflix account to Japanese. It gives you way more options to put Japanese subtitles on your Netflix shows. So highly recommend doing that. The only thing about that is your whole Netflix account is going to be in Japanese, so it might be a little hard to like navigate at first, but I feel like most of the things on the screen have icons, so it's not too hard to navigate if you don't know that much Japanese. But if you have been studying, maybe you've taken Japanese 1 or you've been studying for a year or so, you'll probably be able to read at least a little bit of it, and then you'll be able to switch those subtitles from English to Japanese. And number 2 is setting your phone to Japanese. So I actually did this a really long time ago. I first started learning Japanese in 2014, and I remember back then I did try switching my phone to Japanese a few times, and it was pretty hard in a way because I really couldn't read that much at all. But I did know kind of what all the buttons did already, so even if I couldn't read something, like I knew that this was settings or like this is photos because of the little icon. At this point in time, for me now, I understand pretty much everything. I'd say like 90% of what's on my phone I understand. So maybe if you're a few years into your journey, or if you're right at the beginning and you just want to dive right into it, switch your phone to Japanese. And if there is something like really important you need to read on your phone, then you can go ahead and switch it back temporarily, figure out what you need to figure out, and then switch it back to Japanese. I feel like I learned so many words from doing that, because now, you know, I know the word for like general, or I know the word for like, I mean, a lot of these words you will learn in school or you might learn from a book. I feel like it's a really big help and a good way to kind of just expose yourself all the time. You know, whenever you open your phone, you're going to be kind of like subconsciously thinking in Japanese. Also on your phone, there is going to be a lot of kanji, and I know for a lot of people, they are afraid of kanji, or it seems like a little bit hard, a little bit challenging. So I am super excited to share with you guys today's sponsor for the video. Today's video is sponsored by MochiMochi, and MochiMochi is basically a kanji learning app. So I've really been liking MochiMochi so far, because for me personally, like I said, I know about 1,000 to 1,200 kanji already, so I really need to keep learning kanji so that I can read, you know, books, or so that I can read newspapers. So one of the main things I really love about MochiMochi is that it makes learning kanji fun and easy, and it also lets you pick where you want to start with kanji. So if you're at the very beginning, you've only learned hiragana and katakana, then you can start at the very top. You can start from basically like N5 Japanese. So for those of you guys who don't know, there is a test called the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. That felt so long. Anyways, it's basically called the JLPT, and it's a test that can pretty much assess your Japanese level. So, and you pick which level you're gonna take. So N5 is like the beginner, and then N1 is like business Japanese, like you are super fluent, you know more maybe than some Japanese people basically. So for me personally, I took the N3, which is like the middle level, like intermediate. I took that in 2018 and I passed. Right now I'm studying for N2, and I haven't really been studying for the past few years, so I'm really glad to be using the MochiMochi app, because I plan on taking the N2 exam this year. Usually they have the exams in July and December, so it's really helpful to have a fun way to learn all of my N2 kanji. And one of the other things I like about the app is that it tells you your golden time to learn the kanji. So basically when your brain is about to forget the words you just learned or the kanji you just learned, you get a notification on your phone and it reminds you now is the time to review it one more time so that you don't forget it. So it's been really helpful for me, because I'm taking the N2 in either 5 months or in 11 months. So it's coming up fast, and there is a lot of kanji for the test that I'm going to be taking.
On top of MochiMochi being a great app for learning kanji and new words, it also categorizes the words you're learning into 5 different groups. 1 being you just started learning the word, and 5 being your long-term memory.
I think it's really great just that it has it kind of broken down. And that's one thing for me that's been different than other apps, because a lot of other apps always make you start from the very beginning of Japanese, and if you are anywhere past the beginning, or like me, like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm almost like 10 years in. I started in 2014, so I don't need the beginning anymore. I need to like jump in. I need to jump into the deep end. So I love that when I first opened up the app, I could just skip to where I needed to start and just kind of get started from there, versus having to try to go through like the beginning, because I don't really like doing that when it is kind of just making you answer questions that I'm like, I already learned this like 10 years ago. I don't need to waste time. So if you guys are interested in checking out MochiMochi for yourself, you guys can click the link down below, or you guys can just search it on the App Store or on the Google Play Store. So tip number 3 is to follow Japanese accounts on Instagram and Twitter, or whatever social media that you guys use the most. So for me personally, I really love the game Splatoon, so I started following Splatoon accounts on Twitter, because a lot of them just kind of talk about like updates about the game or like what's going on. So I would say like choose something that you're already interested in, like something that you already would be kind of reading in English anyways. Or, you know, if you just find people that are maybe around your age, I think that would also be a good idea too. For me, sometimes I follow people who like have a certain makeup style I really like, or maybe they're just influencers that just happen to be living in Japan, or they just speak Japanese. Besides that, I also do have friends that speak Japanese, so a lot of them post in Japanese as well. But I feel like this is a really good way to just kind of be immersed with Japanese. Like if your phone's in Japanese, now when you go on Instagram, you know, you might be seeing people who are what is that? Oh my gosh. I didn't know what that noise was. I don't know if you guys can hear it. But, okay, my camera stopped for a second. Yeah, so basically what I was saying is that if you're following people who speak Japanese on Instagram or Twitter, or if you use Facebook or Snapchat or whatever it is that you use, and if you don't use anything, then this tip is not for you. But I mean, you're on YouTube, so you can follow some Japanese YouTubers, and I think that would help as well. But the purpose of this is basically just so that you're kind of seeing Japanese all the time or every day. And I always am like trying to read them. Like even if I don't feel like reading it, if you see a word, I'm kind of like, my brain tries to read it really fast, and I feel like that's just kind of a good thing to have in your daily life if you're trying to get better at Japanese. And number 4 is listening to Japanese music and singing along to the lyrics. So I think this is really, really helpful. I definitely think it's important to pick Japanese music that you like, and you can find the lyrics on Spotify if you have Spotify, and if you don't have Spotify, you can always just Google the lyrics. I personally do keep them in the Japanese like lettering. Some people do like to switch it to the English, like romanization. I would say just pick whatever is most comfortable for you, but I think it is really good to get more comfortable trying to read it in Japanese. But either way is fine, because this is more about like improving your pronunciation and your tone and just kind of like getting kind of the flow of Japanese. So basically when I was a kid, when I was like 9 years old, I used to watch a lot of anime when I was a kid, and I would sing the songs. Like that was like one of my favorite things to do. Like I would be like screaming the songs like in my living room with my mom. And yeah, so I pretty much just like learned the lyrics because a lot of them had the lyrics on the screen in Japanese. And the really cool thing about this is that when you're memorizing the lyrics, for one, you're kind of just gonna know all these Japanese words like subconsciously. At the same time, as you start studying Japanese, you're going to be picking up some of these words, and then when you go back and sing the song like a month or 2 months later or a year later, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like this is what the song was saying, or like, oh my gosh, I know that word now. Like it's the weirdest thing for me to like sing a really old song I learned and then be like, that's what they were talking about? Like, what the heck? You know, because if you don't know what they're saying, like to you it just sounds like nothing. But yeah, that's happened to me with a lot of the songs from when I was a kid. But also learning it now, or just learning like new songs now, I understand a lot more of what they're saying already, just like off the bat. But at the same time, it just kind of helps me like pick up new words, or even if I don't really know some of the words, it still helps me with my pronunciation, and it just kind of makes my Japanese flow better. I really feel like it helps, because I get a lot of people saying like, whoa, like you really sound like you know Japanese. But at the same time, when I very first started learning, I got that compliment too. So I'm kind of like, even when I didn't really know anything, people were still saying this. So I think it kind of just has to do with kind of feeling more comfortable pronouncing Japanese words in the proper way. And I feel like if you're singing songs, you're going to pick that up really, really fast. And if you don't know any Japanese artists, I definitely recommend Honeycomb Bear. I love their songs. They're kind of like electronic, like techno, a little bit like anime, but some like kind of cutesy songs. And one last thing for number 4 is you can take this a step further and actually annotate the lyrics, which basically means if there's like a word or like a kanji you don't know, you can write the furigana, which is like the hiragana and katakana, that will allow you to read it. You can put that above the word, and then you can also translate each line of the song. So I do this sometimes if I'm really feeling like it, or if I really want to study. And I love it because it really helps me to understand what the song is about, and it just kind of is another fun way to study, and it doesn't really take that long to do one song. You know, if you spend 20 minutes or something like that just doing one song, you know, it's kind of just a fun way to make sure you study that day. And number 5 for non-traditional ways to learn Japanese is talking to Japanese people. So I feel like a lot of people who are studying Japanese, they might be studying it in school or they might be studying it at home, but they don't actually end up talking to Japanese people. They might know all these words, but they just don't, you know, have that practice. So one, I would say, if you meet someone Japanese, or if, you know, you're in a place where there is Japanese people, I mean, make an effort to make some friends. I started asking some of my friends at that time that were Japanese, like, hey, do you happen to speak Japanese? And some did, some didn't. But it was great because I always had people to reach out to, like if I had a question or something, or if I was just a little bit confused about something. But let's say maybe you're not in an area, or maybe you don't have a lot of Japanese friends. Another thing I did that was super random, sometimes I'd be in the mall and I would hear someone like speaking Japanese. And one time I was in this store called Typo, and this girl was like, oh my gosh, like kawaii desu ne. Well, actually she didn't say oh my gosh. She was just saying kawaii desu ne, like to something, and basically like that's cute. And I went up to her and I was just like, I just said like konnichiwa, and she was like, oh my gosh, like doshite, like why are you speaking Japanese, what the heck? And I kind of just like said hi, like I'm studying Japanese in college right now. I want to study abroad there one day. And she was just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. She said she was just visiting, and we just had like a nice little conversation, and then she ended up giving me her line after, and I don't think I messaged her. I don't know, I probably had a lot of people I was already kind of like asking questions to at that point. But, you know, if I did need to ask questions, I definitely could have reached out to her. So I know some of you guys are like, oh my gosh, like I can't do that. And that's totally fine too. Like these are just options. But I definitely think that, you know, you never know like what can happen just by saying hi to someone. So I always recommend, like, you know, even if you just know a little Japanese, like I started doing this when I had only been studying for like a year. And another thing that I did was I actually used HelloTalk, which is basically just like a chatting app. I know some people haven't had the best experience on there, but I personally didn't have any issues on HelloTalk, and I actually made a lot of friends on there. And some of them I still keep in contact with to this day, and they really, really helped me with my Japanese, especially just with texting and kind of like getting used to the way like casual Japanese sounds, because in school you kind of just learn like the textbook type of Japanese, but when you actually make friends or you're just talking to someone more casually, you start to learn how Japanese actually sounds, or how people actually talk. And the last thing I would recommend is to get a tutor if, let's say, you don't like HelloTalk, you don't have any Japanese friends in the area. You can always get a tutor online, actually for a very affordable price. A few of my friends use Italki, and on Italki I actually have been looking at the website because I plan on taking Japanese lessons pretty soon, so I've been searching for an instructor, like an online teacher on Italki. And there's also another website called Kakehashi Japan, and I actually did a trial lesson on there too. It was really, really good. It was actually really good. On Italki, I know some of the lessons only start at $5 for a session, or $10. So if you have like an extra $200 sitting around, or even $100, or even $50, you could do, let's say, 5 lessons for $50 if they're $5 lessons, or you could do 5 lessons for $100, and that would be like a whole month if you, or 5 weeks if you just did like one a week. So I think it's a really good idea if you're serious, you want to be fluent in Japanese. There is so many different options out there that you can do just from like sitting right here in your house. So I hope these tips helped you guys, and I hope you guys have some new ideas about how to study Japanese besides the traditional ways like going to school or studying from a book. So if you guys like these tips, make sure to comment down below. And question of the day is, Where are you in your Japanese language learning journey? Are you consistent? Are you not consistent? There is no judgment here, but go ahead and comment down below where you are in your Japanese language learning journey. I want to once again thank our sponsor MochiMochi for sponsoring this video. Definitely check them out down below if you're interested in improving your kanji. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. It's been super fun. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and I will see you guys in my next video. 動画を見てくれてありがとうございました。じゃあね。バイバイ。So, I want to say 今日はI feel like I haven't spoke Japanese in a while on camera. Feels weird. 5つの非伝統的なを教えたいと思います。You guys are gonna love this one. It's senpai. Senpai. Switch your phone to Japanese and realistic. Like, basically your brain would be about to forget it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Singing along to the songs. Oh my gosh, I don't know why that sounds so weird. But yeah, so number 4. Guys, I can't.